How does a relentless ocean carve vertical walls of limestone and shale that stretch for miles along an exposed edge? The answer lies in millions of years of compression, followed by the constant battering of deep water waves. Bright green grasses cling to the very precipice, contrasting with the dark, layered rock face below. These massive geological defenses face the full force of the weather, crumbling inch by inch into the churning surf. The tension between solid earth and restless water shapes the entire history of the people behind them. Perched on the grassy cliff top, a 19th century stone folly provides a panoramic vantage point over the churning sea. Built for observation, O'Brien's Tower offers uninterrupted views of the isolated sea stacks and the sheer face of the Cliffs of Moher. Further along the coast, the power of coastal erosion forms natural rock arches. The dynamic movement of the water crashes against dark brown and gray limestone, revealing distinct geological layering. These natural features, known as the Bridges of Ross, remain temporary structures before the relentless waves eventually break them down. Rolling green pastures transition abruptly to sheer, jagged drops. A warm golden glow of sunset settles over a traditional coastal settlement near the edge. These jagged, dark rock formations rise sharply from the water, creating a rugged boundary. The Kerry cliffs drop steeply into the sea, showing how the land abruptly gives way to the deep blue expanse of the ocean below. Brightly painted facades brighten the streets of sheltered harbor towns, even on heavily overcast days. Colorful multi-story buildings line the pavement, offering a sharp contrast to the exposed rocky terrain nearby. The town of Dingle sits quietly on this peninsula, balancing an active local life against the harsh marine environment. Weathered gray stone ruins sit strategically on a grassy headland. Menard Castle acts as a silent sentinel, overlooking the calm bay and the rugged coastal rocks. Inland from the sheer cliffs, the terrain shifts to karst landscapes and high mountain passes. Fast-flowing, turbulent rivers cut through mossy rocks, bringing fresh water down from the rugged hills. Narrow asphalt roads wind through dense coniferous clusters, navigating the rocky topography. This environment characterizes the Western National Parks, where lush green vegetation thrives alongside exposed gray stone. Killarney National Park features these deep valleys and rushing streams, providing a habitat for diverse plant life in a region shaped by continuous rain and ancient glacial movements. Ancient glaciers carve deep, U-shaped valleys into the rock, leaving behind steep, grass-covered mountains. Serene, dark lakes nestle between these tall, towering rocky slopes, reflecting the heavy skies. The Gap of Dunloe forms a dramatic pass through the high terrain, where narrow bodies of water rest quietly in the shadows of the surrounding peaks. Dormant, brown vegetation blankets the high passes during the cooler months. A winding road navigates the craggy hills, cutting a vital route through Mole's Gap. Sweeping vistas reveal interconnected waterways winding through a valley flanked by imposing mountains. Heavy, overcast skies add dramatic shadows to the landscape, known as Lady's View. Dense, dark green forests line the tranquil shores of a calm, reflective lake. Hidden within the woodland, ancient stone ruins feature a central cloister courtyard. Muckross Lake provides a quiet setting for the remnants of a medieval Franciscan friary. Thick, dry stone walls, built for defense, form a perfect circle in a bright green field. The ancient lower ring fort endures within the modern agricultural landscape. Soft, golden light illuminates the varied roof lines of a dense urban center. Galway City integrates industrial port infrastructure with residential neighborhoods, resting right on the edge of a large body of water. A powerful, fast flow of water cuts straight through the heart of the urban center. Multi-arched stone bridges connect historic districts, handling both pedestrian and modern traffic. Fast-flowing rivers pass centuries-old stone buildings and brick facades. The River Corrib moves rapidly past manicured banks and paved walkways, bringing the force of nature directly into the busy city streets. In places like this, the water level requires careful management. The constant rush of the river provides a natural soundtrack to the busy, mixed architecture of the surrounding town. Crumbling gray masonry stands in stark contrast to nearby modern buildings. The remnants of Terryland Castle feature a prominent chimney stack beside the flowing river. A classic 16th century stone tower house occupies a small grassy peninsula. Enclosed by a defensive bawn wall, Dunguire Castle extends directly into the tidal bay. Dark, rocky beaches meet the white foam of crashing waves. Steep, grass-covered slopes plunge directly into the choppy ocean, creating a stark contrast between the bright green hills and the deep water. At Keene Beach, the dramatic bay is sheltered by massive cliffs that drop sharply toward the sandy shoreline. A massive, steep limestone mountain dominates the lower flat landscape with its unique flat-topped profile. Glacial action during the last ice age carved the deep, shadowed crevices that run vertically down the steep rock face. This prominent peak, Ben Bulben, features distinct vertical rock formations that rise abruptly from the surrounding lush green agricultural fields. Dramatic vertical layering defines this massive, sheer limestone cliff face. Below the solid rock, large scree slopes of loose gray stones form a chaotic base, created by continuous weathering and frost action on Eagle's Rock over many thousands of years. A historic plantation-era fortification sits strategically on the water's edge. Park's Castle features traditional gray stone masonry and multiple defensive turrets guarding the calm lakeshore. A historic, multi-arched stone bridge spans the wide, winding river. The Carrick-on-Shannon Bridge plays a very vital role in connecting the dense collection of light-colored town buildings. Expansive sandy estuaries define the northern coastline, meeting calm turquoise waters. Scattered rural housing dots the rolling green hills near the wide beaches of Lettermack Award. Rocky promontories serve as natural defensive foundations for weathered stone towers. Prominent white-walled tower houses, surrounded by lower curtain walls, command the exposed coastal positions. These fortifications look out over calm blue bays and jagged inlets, protecting the sea approaches. The historic structures of Dog Castle and nearby coastal fortresses utilize the steep drops to the ocean as part of their defenses. The thick gray and white stone masonry withstands the harsh northern weather, standing securely on the very edge of the land. Vital maritime infrastructure perches on the most exposed headlands. Bright white and black and white striped lighthouses sit on rugged cliff edges, providing essential navigation marks for passing ships. Distinct painted day marks range from solid white to bold horizontal stripes, making them highly visible against the dark rock and sea. Walled compounds protect the keepers and their quarters from fierce winter storms.
Beacons like Faned Head Lighthouse ensure safe passage along the jagged coastline, maintaining a constant watch over the deep, turbulent waters of the northern Atlantic Ocean.
Derelict brick and concrete structures of former coastal defense batteries sit on the cliff edge. Circular gun emplacements command the sea approaches from a high vantage point. The weathered ruins of Lennon Head Fort blend into the rugged, grassy headland, leaving a permanent military footprint on the steep northern coastline overlooking the vast ocean. Deep, narrow fissures cut sharply into the jagged rock cliffs, carved by relentless hydraulic action. Bright patches of purple wildflowers cling to the grassy plateaus above the dark water. This steep, rocky inlet, known as Hell's Hole, pulls the ocean deep into the solid coastline. Historic graveyards sit right on the edge of wide tidal estuaries. In the nearby coastal gardens, the bright orange-red breast of the European robin adds a flash of color. The stone ruins of Donegal Abbey overlook the calm river, marking a quiet intersection of town life and local wildlife. A patchwork of small green fields, divided by traditional dry stone walls, covers the rolling hills. Whitewashed houses with dark roofs scatter along the rocky shoreline at Port New. An imposing Gothic Revival architecture built from gray stone towers over the colorful coastal town. The tall, ornate spire dominates the steep hillside, serving as a prominent landmark for ships navigating the southern harbors. Below the church, dense rows of brightly painted multi-story townhouses line the waterfront. The steep streets step up the incline, contrasting sharply with the massive stone walls of the religious structure. St. Colman's Cathedral watches over the bustling port, anchoring the busy residential neighborhoods that climb the surrounding hills and face the open sea. Sheltered estuaries provide perfect conditions for large marinas filled with sailboats. Dense clusters of traditional buildings feature varied, brightly painted exteriors along the water. Kinsale Harbour combines a busy boating infrastructure with a colorful town center, creating a dense settlement nestled safely away from the open sea. Tranquil, damp environments support thick moss and bright green shrubs along the riverbanks. Simple wooden footbridges cross the calm, reflective streams that wind through the dense foliage. These lush estates surround the stone walls of Blarney Castle, integrating the historic fortifications into a thriving wet woodland ecosystem. Dramatic limestone outcrops provide natural elevation for ancient seats of power. A medieval complex of Romanesque and Gothic stone architecture sits enclosed within high walls. The vast, bright green patchwork of agricultural fields stretches out, completely surrounding the elevated site. The Rock of Cashel dominates the inland plains, using the sheer rock foundation as a strategic advantage. This cluster of towers, chapels, and cathedrals forms a sharp contrast to the flat, fertile farmland that extends toward the horizon. Bright purple rhododendrons blanket the rolling hills in early summer. Narrow gravel paths skirt the edges of Bay Lauk, a dark, reflective quarry lake nestled inland. Deep valleys carve into the mountain ranges. A winding gravel path leads toward cascading waterfalls that drop from the steep, rocky cliffs at Mahon Falls. A rich mineral history hides within these steep, grassy cliffs. Jagged rock formations scatter throughout the clear, blue bays along the sandy beaches of the Copper Coast. Small, secluded pebble beaches hide within the deep, dark, rocky inlets. Winding asphalt roads follow the very edge of the steep, dark cliffs, bordering lush green fields. At Newton Cove, the land drops abruptly into the clear water, forming quiet swimming spots protected by the massive rock walls that line this rugged southern coastline. Massive circular towers and thick curtain walls characterize Norman military design along the riverbanks. These 13th century stone fortresses controlled major river crossings, establishing dominance over trade and travel. Modern glass-fronted visitor centers now integrate directly into the ancient courtyards. King John's Castle sits prominently on the riverbank, its weathered gray stone reflecting in the water below. The strategic placement ensured that whoever held the fortress controlled the flow of goods into the interior, turning the wide river into a heavily guarded boundary against any advancing forces. Densely packed urban landscapes merge historic stone with modern brick. Public parks reclaimed along the edges of the wide rivers offer green space at Arthur's Quay Park. Extensive 13th century stone ruins sit surrounded by lush green parkland. Weathered gray limestone walls and prominent gables reflect in the calm river waters. These medieval structures often included large banqueting halls and defensive towers positioned to monitor the waterways. Desmond Castle occupies the riverbank, its crumbling archways providing a glimpse into the defensive architecture of the past. The slow-moving river acts as a natural moat, enhancing the security of the fortress while supporting the dense green vegetation that now reclaims the thick stone boundary walls. Crumbling walls and arched window openings hint at former grandeur. Low weirs manage the flow of the adjacent river beside the historic ruins of Adair Castle. A unique juxtaposition places medieval friary ruins right beside manicured modern fairways. Central towers and arched windows remain preserved within the recreational landscape of Adair Franciscan Friary. Grand educational institutions use imposing gray stone and steep slate spires to establish a commanding physical presence. These sprawling campuses sit on the edges of dense residential towns. St. Flannan's College features a prominent central clock tower that dominates the surrounding buildings. Meticulously manicured formal gardens are laid out with precise geometric box hedges. The 17th century grounds of the Royal Hospital Kilmainham sit juxtaposed with modern commuter railway lines. Powerful streams cascade over dark, textured granite rock faces in the eastern ranges. The rugged, moss-covered slopes host dense coniferous forests that thrive in the constant moisture. Large, flat stepping stones provide a way to cross the shallow, clear pools formed at the base of the drops. Waterfalls like Caraway Stick cut deeply into the hillside, moving fast over the exposed stone. The continuous flow shapes the valley floor, nourishing the bright green vegetation that clings to every available surface in this wet, elevated, steep mountain environment. Thick, rolling blankets of white fog frequently obscure the steep cliff sides. Dark, peaty waters fill the lakes nestled deep in the valleys. At Loch Tay, the rugged stone drops sharply into the calm water, while the dense moisture in the air sustains the lush green vegetation on the surrounding slopes. Elegant, formal gardens and expansive, bright green lawns surround the massive gray stone walls. Prominent circular towers and crenellated battlements perch securely above the river embankment. Kilkenny Castle dominates the landscape, its medieval architecture completely preserved amidst carefully manicured grounds. The fortress uses the natural elevation of the riverbank for defense, while the sprawling lawns provide a clear line of sight, blending military utility with the grandeur of a large aristocratic estate. Traditional stone mills built alongside weirs harness the water power. Multi-arched stone bridges, like the one near Kells King's Mill, have carried local traffic for centuries. Abbey ruins nestle within dense green forests, creating a very quiet, secluded setting. At Tintern Abbey, ancient stone bridges cross the muddy, tidal riverbeds nearby. Distinctive black and white plumage and colorful beaks mark the Atlantic puffins resting on the steep cliffs. Patches of white sea campion flowers blanket the grassy slopes of these offshore islands. The salty islands provide an isolated sanctuary, far from the mainland predators. The birds gather along the lush green edges, using the high, rugged coastline as a secure breeding ground, while the churning ocean below supplies them with a constant source of food. Nature reclaims disused industrial sites, turning deep excavated pits into serene lakes. Rugged, reddish-brown rock cliffs now sit surrounded by dense evergreen pine trees. The flooded basin of Carrickfoyle Quarry shows how rapidly vegetation and water can cover the scars of stone extraction, transforming a working mine into a quiet, tree-lined body of water. Ancient stone round towers mark the sites of early monastic settlements. Nearby, Romanesque-style arched doorways and pointed Gothic windows reveal the later additions of friaries. The Castle Dermot Round Tower stands tall among these historic churchyards, preserving centuries of continuous religious architecture. Monumental engineering from the 19th century carries railways high over the deep valleys. Long series of symmetrical arches, built from massive stone blocks, stretch across the landscape. Some of these structures now remain in ruins over peat bogs and tidal rivers, while others still support trains today. The Boyne Viaduct crosses the wide water, demonstrating the sheer scale of Victorian industrial ambition. These massive stone bridges forever altered the terrain, connecting isolated towns and spanning the wide rivers that once served as natural barriers to travel. Intricately carved stone high crosses originally served as educational tools for early monks. Tall, conical-roofed round towers were built as belfries and secure places of refuge during raids. Active cemeteries have slowly grown around these ancient monastic sites over the centuries. At Monasterboice, the detailed stonework survives exposed to the weather, preserving biblical scenes carved over 1,000 years ago. The cylindrical tower watches over the graves, marking one of the most significant early Christian settlements to emerge on the island, long before the medieval castles. The tension between the solid stone and the damp, restless environment eventually reclaims even the grandest human efforts. Grand Gothic revival estates now sit as empty, ivy-covered shells, returning slowly to the earth. The decaying gray masonry of Castle Saunderson contrasts sharply with the bright, manicured lawns that surround it. From the sheer coastal cliffs to these quiet inland ruins, the relentless moisture and heavy weather dictate the shape of the land. In the end, the massive stone always yields to the persistent green vegetation.